Szanowni Państwo, wszyscy wielbiciele pająków i wszyscy ci, u których widok pająka wciąż jeszcze wywołuje lęk. Ja nazywam się Urszula Suprunowicz
Ja, Aleksandra Rozumko.
i bardzo serdecznie witamy już na drugim naszym wykładzie online, zorganizowanym w ramach Dnia Pająka 2025. Dzisiejszy wykład będzie miał dość wyjątkową formułę.
Tak, nasi prelegenci są bardzo aktywnymi badaczami pająków i nasz dzisiejszy prelegent Tom Ole Heidenreich, student z Uniwersytetu w Hamburgu i miłośnik pająków z rodziny pogońcowatych, szczególnie tych australijskich gatunków, z którymi miał do czynienia przy okazji swojej pracy licencjackiej, obecnie przebywa na badaniach terenowych w Tajwanie, w związku z czym przez różnicę stref czasowych wykład został nagrany, ale pozostają z nami w kontakcie, więc zachęcamy Państwa do zadawania pytań w komentarzach. Tom będzie je na bieżąco czytał i my również przeczytamy je na koniec i udzielimy
I oczywiście
odpowiedzi.
Tom na bieżąco będzie na nie odpowiadał.
Dokładnie.
Zatem życzymy miłego, owocnego oglądania.
Okay. Hello guys, my name is Tom. I think Alexandra already introduced myself, so I don't need to say too much about myself. So I will just continue with the presentation of my little, of something that was related to my thesis, I would say, that I prepared for your Save the Spider Day. Yes, I will talk about a bit what are salt lakes, so that pretty impressive habitat in Australia and around the world. I will also talk about who lives on them. I will continue with something about wolf spiders in general, and then I give you a little insight into my thesis that I composed with those information. If you first have a look at this map of Australia, it's already slightly noticeable especially where those salt lakes are, but have another closer look at this part of Western Australia, you can pretty easily see those salt lakes. So everything that is white and grayish on that map are salt lakes. So as you can also see that they're quite big, so some span multiple hundreds of square kilometers, others are just a few hundred square meters apart. So it's just pretty different. But they are all pretty old and distinct features of the Australian salt lakes. So they're remnants of the ancient river systems that flew through Australia. So millions of years ago, at least until 70 million years ago, the climate in Australia was really humid. So there were many big river systems on the Australian continent, and around 70 million years ago, a process of aridification started. So the climate changed and everything dried out, which only left those salt lakes, which once were part of those river systems, but are now not connected anymore. And they are all inland drainage areas. So if there's a big rainfall, the water doesn't flow in rivers to the ocean, like it is in Europe in most cases, but it collects on those salt lakes in the middle of the continent and just stays there until it dries out again. That can take a long while. So for many months in the year, mostly during winter there, which is like in July for us, in July, so our summertime, those lakes contain water. And during that time, there are a lot of crustaceans, just like having a huge rise in biodiversity, and that's called a boom cycle. So those crustaceans then again attract many birds, for example, water birds, and introduce breeding events, so it's all connected there. However, after those few months of a huge rise in biodiversity, the playa of the lake dries out again. What's left is a just dry surface with many different appearances, as you can see on those images here. So some are covered in a really thick salt crust, others have only a bit of salt on them, and many other lakes, at least on the surface, don't have anything at all. But if there's water, the water is always saline, so all those crustaceans and other animals living on them have to deal with the salt. And you might wonder where that salt comes from. That's not really, we don't really know, but there are strong suggestions that the salt once came from the oceans because the composition or the composition of the salt is pretty similar to that on or in the oceans. And there are a lot of arthropods living on that dry surface. You might not think so because it's really hostile. So temperatures can exceed 45 degrees and even 50 degrees in summer during the day, and the nights are pretty cold. So you have extreme temperature changes. You have salt, as I already told you about. And it all seems like a pretty hostile environment. But there are many arthropods, for example, tiger beetles, as you can see in the right corner there. But there are also crickets and scorpions and, what this talk will be about, a lot of spiders. So what you can see on that image here is a wolf spider. It's from the genus Tetralochosa. But there are also other spiders. So there are jumping spiders, those cute little spiders with the big eyes. And at least that's what we know so far. There might be even more species living on the salt lakes. However, their research on them is pretty low up to now. So there's a need for a lot more research to be done on them. Wolf spiders, I guess many of you have heard about them. They can be quite cute. They have that distinctive eye pattern of two really big eyes up front and also two other big eyes on their back. So those big eyes gives them like a pretty good eyesight, much better than other families. So many spiders have only really weak eyesight and cannot see much at all, but those wolf spiders can. They even can see pretty good at night because they have a layer in their eyes that's called tapetum lucidum, which is also present in a few other families, but not many. So, and those gives them the ability to have good eyesight at night because the light gets refracted multiple times inside their eyes. In general, wolf spiders are the 5th largest families, only after really big families like jumping spiders or Linyphidae, and they are present on all continents with great diversity. By now there are 2,500 species described. However, their taxonomy remains harsh. That's because many of those big genera that you will hear about later are pretty hard to distinguish from each other on a morphological level because they look pretty similar, or the characters look pretty similar. One of the reasons why they are so ecologically successful and have so many species lays within their brood care. So they have the ability to carry the egg sac that all spiders have with their spinnerets that allows them to hunt freely and be able to work with their pedipalps and their legs without leaving the egg sac behind. And then once those spiderlings hatch, they carry all of those little spiders on their back and on their prosoma. So that can go up in the hundreds of little spiders living on them. And it looks pretty cool. And this gives them a bigger advantage compared to other spider families. They also have something that is called ballooning. So it's a dispersal mechanism, not only used by spiders, but also other groups like mites or moths or moth larvae. And it's a great ecological advantage. So normally ballooning only lets the spider fly for a few hundred meters. However, it can also let them fly for hundreds of kilometers, which allows them to go over big distances and colonize far away habitats. So it makes them colonizers of, it makes them, I'm sorry. So it just allows them to fly big distances. And there has been a lot of study done on those ballooning behaviors. For example, it has been able to show that circumstances like overcrowding and the lack of food increase the ability or the likelihood of a ballooning to happen, and a high risk of ballooning, which is always there, but in some habitats like strongly fragmented habitats, the risk is even greater, and this reduces the likelihood of a ballooning to be happen. Okay, so there are many different genera, more than 200 genera of wolf spiders described. One of those is Tetraloicosa. It's an Australian endemic genus, only known from saline habitats, like those salt lakes, as I've already talked about, or beaches. So somehow those spiders only appear there, which gets us to the conclusion that they're at least halotolerant, so they can tolerate the salt, or they can even be halophile, so they only can live with the salt. However, which one of those two it is requires more studies. There are 13 species by now described, with some species already described 150 years ago, so it has been known for a long time. And it's one of the two genera present on salt lakes. The other one is Lycosa, with only one species described. That's Lycosa salifodina, and was described by McKay in 1976. It's a really big wolf spider, so the body length can be like up to 4 centimeters. So with the legs, it can surely be the size of your hand. And yeah, they are also only known from salt lakes, not around it. They have a fairly big distribution area. So most salt lakes in Western Australia, in the southern part of Western Australia, are known to have them on them. So that's like a distribution area of at least 500 by 500 kilometers, which is really big for Australian comparisons. And yeah, as you can already see here, they have a certain behavior of digging into the ground during the day. So as I said, it can get really hot during the day. So therefore those spiders only come out at night to hunt, and during the day they hide in those burrows close to the surface of the salt lake, as you can see here. And also, yeah, like as I said, those spiders are not really well researched yet, but we know that they only come in those places near water. So as other predators, those spiders get their water, which is pretty necessary for every living organism, from other prey, for example, those beetles that also live there. But we don't really know where those beetles get their water from. So yeah, there are many questions still remaining unknown. But they also have to get rid of their water somehow, of their excess water. So if they drink, it's mostly contaminated with salt, so they have to get rid of it. And they probably have some kind of mechanism to get rid of it. It has been shown that, for example, spiders living near the Baltic Sea have such behaviors or special organs to get rid of it. And it's likely that those spiders also have those abilities. But all that said, I can tell you a bit about my study. So we looked at that species, Lycosa salifodina, which is only known from that area there that I've shown here. So and we know that it has a pretty huge distribution area. So we wanted to figure out if it's only one species or if it's many species so close together that they for now have been only treated as one species. And then we wanted to figure out if the speciation process is driven by vicariance, so by the remnants of those old river systems, or if it shows a dispersal pattern that can be explained by their ability to perform ballooning. And also there has been a similar study done a few years back on those tiger beetles, and we wanted to compare our results with them. So we collected those spiders from all of those lakes here in 2 field trips. It was a really cool time. So I flew down there last year, and I and my supervisor and another PhD student, we just went out there for a week and just had really long car rides every day to collect from as many lakes as we could. And we found Lycosa salifudina on most lakes, which was a great success for us. And those burrows are pretty easy to spot because they have a special pattern around their burrows. And afterwards, we had a look at them and determined them, and afterwards did some genetic analysis with Seoborn and 28S and had different approaches used for species delineation. And we got some pretty nice results. I hope that I will be able to publish those results in, I think a few months, if I'm ambitious. So I'm excited to do that. What I can share is that we also were able to find a new genus, or to describe a new genus, with by now I think like 6 species in them. Those are 2 of them that are only known on salt lakes. So we were able to figure out that that big complex of Lycosa salifudina at least contains 2 species, which pictures you can see here. They look quite similar, but those epigynes, which are normally used to determine spiders, and as well as their male counterparts, so the pedipalp, those look fairly different, so therefore we are pretty sure that they're different species. And if everything goes well, you will be able to read about my studies in a few months. So if you have any other questions, I would happily be able to answer them via email, so you can contact me there. And I hope I could teach you something about wolf spiders and the special habitat in Western Australia. Here are my sources, and have a nice day.
Drodzy Państwo, to jest ten moment, kiedy Tom niecierpliwie i z wielką radością czeka na Państwa pytania, zatem zapraszamy do zadawania pytań w komentarzu. Temat pająków pogońcowatych myślę, że jest też takim tematem bliskim naszym badaniom, które prowadzimy tutaj na Wydziale Biologii Uniwersytetu w Białymstoku. A czy Ola coś w jakiś sposób szczególny zaskoczyło Ciebie?
Myślę, że mnie najbardziej zainteresował właśnie ten aspekt, jak wymagające jest to środowisko. Fakt, że właśnie pająki pogońcowate w Polsce, którymi my się często zajmowaliśmy przy okazji naszych badań w kole naukowym biologów, nie muszą w ogóle budować tych norek, ewentualnie niektóre tylko gatunki to robią, a tam fakt, że pająk dosłownie musi się ukrywać przed tym gorącem i zasoleniem robi wrażenie.
Tak, no tutaj na pewno świat pająków jest niezwykle różnorodny i zaskakujący też w zależności od tego, gdzie prowadzimy badania. Zachęcamy do zadawania pytań. Jeśli nie tutaj dzisiaj w komentarzach, to na maila, którego też Tom podał na końcu swojej prezentacji. A tymczasem chyba będziemy się już żegnać z Państwem dzisiaj. Bardzo dziękujemy za kolejne wspólne popołudnie. Jutro o 17:00 widzimy się znowu. Powracamy do tematów skakunów. Jutro profesor Maciej Bartos z Uniwersytetu Łódzkiego przybliży nam trochę bardziej, jak widzą pająki skaczące. Myślę, że temat niezwykle ciekawy, niezwykle inspirujący. Dlatego już dzisiaj serdecznie zapraszamy i
Dziękujemy za
dziękujemy.
dzisiaj.
Do zobaczenia.